Hello, it's the Smart Property Investment Show Christmas Special. Coming up in this episode, it's the ghost of Christmas past as we look back on 2015. It's the ghost of Christmas yet to come as we look forward to 2016. And it's the ghost of Christmas present as we find out if we really know anything about property. All this and more in this episode of the Smart Property Investment Show. Hello and welcome to the Smart Property Investment Show, where we speculate, meditate and pontificate on all things property investment. My name is Andy Scott. I'm an investor and the publisher here at Smart Property Investment. But it's all changed this week. Mr. Phil Tarrant is not joining us. Phil is not here. It's Santa's busiest time of year. Coincidence? I'll let you guys be the judge of that. So in this week instead, I've got lots of other special guests. And when I say guests, I mean plural. I have literally what seems like the entire editorial team of Smart Property Investment sitting in the room with me. First up, Ms. Vivian Kelly. Hello, Vivian.
Hi, Andy.
Hello. You're the editor of the title. How long have you... look, I'm suggesting that you've got a choice to be here, but let's be honest, it's an illusion. You're here because I told you had to be here. How long have you been working with us on the title?
Well, I am currently tied to the chair, but I have been with you guys for over 4 years now.
Long time and still going strong. I like it. I've also got our editorial assistant, Georgia Brown. Hello, Georgia. How are you today?
Hi, Andy. I'm great. Pretty excited that the festive season is upon us.
So you should be. I'd just like you to confirm to everyone that you're not tied to the chair.
I'm not at all.
Good.
I'm very willing to be here.
Good. See, that's the sort of attitude and enthusiasm I want, Vivian. We're also joined by Alex Whitlock. Alex is an investor. Alex is also my boss, so I'll be very polite to him. But Alex, thanks for joining us today. How are you?
Very good, Andy. Thanks for having me here.
Not at all, mate. And look, and just to, I suppose, give people a bit of a background. Obviously, you're a property investor yourself. You've been investing in property in Australia for 10, 15 years now?
No, about 20 years now. Yes, got the bug when I was living in Hong Kong. Was doing business with some developers. I was actually selling advertising to them, and I ended up reading the editorial they ran with their advertising, to the extent where one day I went in to sell them an advert and I ended up buying a property off them. There you go, you see. Salesmen, the easiest people to sell to.
That is very true. Salesmen are the easiest people to sell to. But however, enough of that yakking. Look, to business people, there's a reason why we are all crammed into the recording room here at Sterling Towers, and that is because it's the Smart Property Investment Christmas Special, which I'm super excited about. Without further ado, kick things off. Viv, obviously you've been overlooking, I guess, what our audience have been excited by over the last 12 months. What sort of things have stood out for you?
So our biggest news stories this year, Andy, were always about suburbs that are going to take off, boom, soar in value, become hotspots, and ultimately deliver investors solid capital gains. Whenever we run stories like these, the feedback I get from readers is split about three ways. There are those who love it and feel a sense of vindication because, yes, I've already bought there and now the media's talking about it. It's definitely going to go nuts. Then there are those who want to know how the experts or research houses decided on these suburbs so they can apply these metrics and methods to their own investigations. And then, of course, there are those who get in touch to tell us these suburbs are definitely not going to take off, we're completely bonkers, and we've really missed the mark. So our most read news story of this year was 21 New South Wales suburbs set to boom, which came off the back of our Fast 50 Boom Suburbs report. This came towards the beginning of the year and is just compiled on the premise that whatever happens in the overall market, smart investors know they can prosper and succeed in all market conditions, and that one was the one that people were really talking about.
And you know I love a boom suburb. You know I love a hotspot story. I mean, it's possibly one of my favourite things in the property investment sphere. Alex, you bought a lot of property over the times, and it's something I do ask everyone who comes on who's an investor. Do you pay any attention at all to hotspot stories, or are you like me, you just love them because they're like the Kardashian of property stories?
Oh, I think everyone loves a hotspot story, don't they? You like to see what the experts are picking for the next boom. I think the reality is that over the years I have bought in. The first property I bought was simply because I was recommended by a developer. You know what? I made very good money on that property. It was where they were selling. It was in South Bank in Melbourne. You know, that area has had its booms and its busts, but over the years, I think time is a great leveler with property investment. And you know what? It was an off-the-plan property. Would I buy off the plan again? No, I wouldn't. But yet, look, I made good money. You know, more recently, we have used a buyer's agent, so we've used their skills and market knowledge to invest in some of the upcoming suburbs in Western Sydney, and look, they've been very, very potent investments.
Look, I'm with you. I mean, look, I do take the mick quite a bit about loving hotspots and booms, and look, I think they're great because I think they're good to illustrate that market shift and move. Absolutely, but yeah, as I was pointing out before, now if an idiot like me is talking about it, then all the good buying has probably gone in that sort of things. What about yourself, Viv? Anything else that you has been paying attention to you?
Well, the other big one this year, unsurprisingly, was mining towns, and I think that's been the case for many years in the past and will continue to be the case for many years to come. In November, I was chatting to BIS Shrapnel's director and chief economist, Frank Gelber, and he said that the collapse of mining towns hasn't even begun. And I know that you guys have talked about this before, but all year we've run stories on the worst performing mining towns and mining towns crashing, but you know, we do continue to get contacted by people as well who say that they did actually do very well out of mining towns. So as much as everyone loves to read about the doom and gloom, I'm not really sure where all these investors who are completely stuffed, stranded and stuck actually are.
I was going to say, because you hear that spoken about so much, and we were talking about it a couple of weeks ago when we had Steve Waters on the show here, that, you know, people are in trouble in those areas. A lot of people have lost a lot of money. But because you'd have thought, certainly someone in your role, you know, from an editorial perspective, would get these calls and letters and emails and stuff coming in saying, yeah, I want to share my story. I mean, do you think these stories aren't there, or do you think people are just like, I totally don't want to share my story because it's really, really hurt me and I look like an absolute idiot?
I think they must exist in some capacity, because the fact is people did buy those properties and there isn't anyone that's buying them in any great volume now. I don't know, maybe it's not as dramatic as it seems, because I get a lot of press releases about mining towns collapsing and a lot of figures demonstrating that might be the case. But barely anyone who's actually in that situation does reach out to us and contact us. So they're either hiding or they're riding it out and hoping that things turn around.
What about you, Alex? Would you ever fess up to I suppose a broad media organisation that you made a silly mistake about something?
Oh, absolutely. You know, why not? Look, it's interesting you talk about mining towns. I think for me, it's so speculative. I mean, you know, even at the beginning of the boom, you know there's going to be a bust. The reason why I started investing in property in the first place is because I was always keen on investing, and I dabbled in the share market in the early days and lost every single time. And I realised quite quickly that short-term speculation wasn't something I was any good at. I think the great thing with property is you can make mistakes as long as you don't go for the fast and quick and easy dollar. I think you can afford to make mistakes, and they can be levelled out. Now, there'll be some experts that will disagree with me, but I think for mere mortals such as myself, you can be forgiven your mistakes as long as you don't make a glaring mistake in a mining town.
I think you've hit on something there that I think is very true. I think one of property's greatest strengths is what puts off a lot of people from doing it, and that's that, you know, sensible, you know, smart property investment, if you will, is generally pretty unspectacular. It's not about speculation. It's not about going in an area that, brilliant, it's going to double in price in 6 months. It's a pretty slow and steady gain, and I think if you have that plan and you recognise that that's what it's going to be and it's going to take you 10, 15 years to get there, I think people are really comfortable with that. But, you know, I've spoken with someone who, we're having a conversation, they'd recently got their property, they'd had some quite nice equity gains on it, and they'd used that to invest in another property. And one of the people in the conversation wasn't an investor, and they said, so you haven't made any money at all then, you just owe the banks more money. And the concept of going, well, yeah, I suppose technically that's happening, but it's also against now 2 assets that person owns, and haven't had to put any more money in is a much better position to be in. So again, we were talking a few weeks ago, 85% of people only own one property, and I think that's probably part of that as well, that it's not really a speculation investment. It's a slow and steady as she goes, and you've got to have a plan to do it.
I think the reason why a lot of people only own one property is because they figure that having a property in their overall investment portfolio makes sense, sort of a diversification strategy, if you will. I think something happens. I think you've got two kinds of people. I think you've got people who have property in their blood and can't wait to get stuck in and get very excited by it. You've then got people who kind of accidentally bump into property. I think once you've made that first investment, something changes in all of us, though. You do get that sense of a very tangible investment when you're buying bricks and mortar versus, sort of paper assets. I think also to make the transition from being a one property investor to being a portfolio owner is really starting to get an idea of what your overall goals are. Now, I mean, everyone wants to make money when they're investing, but I think with property, I think having a strategy where you're looking to build equity over a period of years. Now, whether you want to sort of refinance and start to, to sort of spread that out, or whether you want to have a single property that's well bought in an area that's going to grow and give you good return, one way or the other, I think that you take that long-term view and you see opportunities, as the equity builds up.
I'm with you, but I want to move something or move things along a bit. Probably because, look, I think there's a really important question that we do need to talk about that doesn't really get spoken about it, and I think certain media organisations swerve from it. But today we're going to address it quite simply. Alex, dog or a cat man?
Oh, I'm a dog man.
Vivian, dog or a
Cats,
cat person?
all about the cats.
Cats. She says with a maniacal, crazy cat lady grin. Georgia, cat or dog?
100% dogs.
100% dogs. Well, that's quite good. Actually, that's quite good to know because
You're a bit of both, aren't you, Andy?
I legitimately
Swing
like
both
to
ways.
like to go both ways. That's exactly right. I have a cat and a dog. They are both furry idiots. However, this story that took my attention, and I like it probably because I like pets, is something that it got an awful lot of social shares, as you'd expect. It was quite early in the year, but it's a story about dog owners making better tenants. Now, I know, Alex, you live in your own.
I do, but I've rented for years and years and years.
Viv, you rent, don't you?
And I would have to say that the landlord of our previous place would probably disagree, as my dogs tore up the lawn and it had to be completely relaid. But there you go, that's another story.
I blame the owners in that situation. So, what about you? You rent as well, don't you?
Yeah, I'm a renter.
Yeah, I'm a renter as well. Do you think, with your renting hats on, guys, do you, as a tenant, because look, obviously as an investor, you really want a tenant that will stay with you, and whenever you put the rent up, they'll keep paying the rent, and everybody's happy, and it's a nice, easy thing for you. Do you think something like having pets and stuff do investors, do you think, need to take more into account of what tenants want to keep them there, or do you think tenants just like to complain a bit, and as soon as they find somewhere nicer, 6 months, 12 months, 8 months down the track, they're just going to move there anyway? I guess, do investors need to have any sort of consideration about their tenants?
As a landlord, I do not care whether my tenants have pets or not. It's not an issue for me. I think one of the benefits, if you do have a dog owner or a cat owner, because there are a lot of landlords that won't accept pets, I think you have potential to have a stable tenant. I think in terms of putting up reasonable renting increases, they are more likely to be more balanced in their decisions of whether they're going to stay or go, because it's harder for them to get, other accommodation where the landlord will accept pets. So I think, I'm happy for pets.
What about yourself, Viv? Are you currently with pet?
I am currently without pet. My pet is at mum and dad's house because it is not allowed in my current residence, and it would make a huge difference to me. I would stay longer, I would pay more, I would be more flexible. I'd be much, much less likely to move if I could have my cat with me. So I think it does make a huge difference.
Yeah, you really love your cat, yeah?
I don't know if I've made that clear.
Yeah, I noticed that, and the fact that you wouldn't choose a property where the cat could join you. So, interesting definition of love, I suppose. What about yourself, George? Have you got any pets? Obviously, you're a dog person, but...
I'm a dog person, but I don't have any pets.
Is that because you're not allowed where you're renting?
I'm not sure. I'm actually just allergic to animals, which is really sad.
Oh, no. That is sad.
But I do have a few friends who have animals, and they do tend to find it hard to find a place that they like that will also accept their pets. So I agree with what the guys have said about tenants staying longer in the property if they're allowed to have their pets, because it's just too difficult. Once you find a place that will have your pet, I think you don't want to think about having to look again.
I think also in this, you're going to have, I suspect, vacancy rates rising as you've got so many investors in the marketplace. And I think as a landlord, if you can have a point of difference for your property in a lot of similar properties along the same area, if you're prepared to take pets, that could be what can help to keep your price point high and ensure that you've got somebody in the property.
I suppose as an investor and a tenant, I like to wear two hats on that, and I just think about how if I think that my landlord is not necessarily completely caring about my welfare, but not completely dismissive, it gives me more of it. I don't feel like a tenant. I feel like I own the place that I live in, and that gives me, I suppose, a greater sense of responsibility to look after it. And I know I do things on it that I should probably call the landlord about to get it all fixed up. But you know what? I think it'll take me 10 minutes to do it. It's quick to do it anyway, and I don't mind doing it because, I like living here and I've lived here for a while in that regard. So I suppose another story to move things along that I saw and that from back in the year, and I love this, and the reason I love this story is because it's pretty much the same story that comes out every year, pretty much comes out at exactly the same time of year, and pretty much instigates the same panic through investors every time it comes up. This is from the ATO. The ATO's PR team, they know their market, I'll tell you that much, because I suspect we're not the only group of investors that gets this sort of press release, but it's literally identikit saying ATO is going to put spotlight on, and then it's insert investment group. So it's on property investors. So they were looking out for property investors this year, as they were last year and the year before and the year before. But they were talking, this year they changed their focus a bit, they spoke about holiday lets. As an investor, Alex, have you ever thought of looking at holiday units or holiday seasonal, I suppose, places that are going to be, yields are going to be sky high one month and then non-existent the next?
Yeah, I did. As a matter of fact, I had sort of a bit of a scan at, sort of investing in property in the snow. Okay. It's anyone who goes down to Perish or Threadbow knows. In the peak season, you're talking sort of $3, $4, $5 a month for sort of accommodation if you're actually in the vicinity of the snow, and then it's bugger all when the snow's all melted. I decided not to go for that because at the end of the day, the motivation was really thinking, well, we can go down there and pay nothing for a couple of weeks, and I think at the end of the day, sort of as an investor, I felt more comfortable putting my money into a property that was going to house a regular tenant and just sit there and do its thing. But look, I think there are good, I think you can get good investments in those kind of areas. I think you can also get your fingers burnt.
What about yourself, Viv? Is this, I suppose, do you get many people sort of communicating, writing and talking about these sort of holiday units, or specifically, have you noticed there are certain seasonal themes that seem to come up that are flavour of the month? Or, I mean, look, the ATO's release comes out around tax time, so I guess that's why people think about it. Is there anything that you notice that's quite seasonal as property investors that we all like to read at exactly the same time of year?
I think we go through phases with certain locations. Particularly lately, I've been noticing that everyone wants to talk about the Gold Coast, and I don't think it's a coincidence that we're heading into school holidays, heading into summer, and suddenly there's a lot of experts, developers and armchair experts saying that the Gold Coast is bouncing back and it's crazy and now's the time to get in there. If you can't get in there, get into the Sunshine Coast. If you can't get in there, try the New South Wales South Coast. And I think it's no coincidence that all of these places have the word coast in them, and we're heading into the most fun, most sunny months of the year. It is a theme that's emerged every year since I've been here, that's for sure.
Do you think that's something as well that sort of, I suppose, taps into something that, because we had Sam Saggers in from Positive Real Estate a couple of weeks ago, and he was, and I know you interviewed him as well, and he was talking about, well, we were talking about, mining towns, the boom of mining towns and how it's gone, and how there's always another, I suppose, an excitement wagon for investors or the newsmakers of property investors to attach themselves to. Do you think it's possibly an element of that with this as well, that there's nothing else, so great, coastal towns will do, holiday towns will do, and we're back on again?
Probably. I mean, when I spoke to Sam Saggers, he was saying that there isn't really a mining town equivalent for people to latch onto anymore in terms of fast gains and quick cash and high yields. So I think if there are investors out there who are looking for that kind of location, in summer it's very easy to get swept up in the idea of a holiday location where families will overpay during the holiday season and you'll make great money. But I think it's important to remember that it is summer and these locations might not be as exciting and as fulfilling come June, July.
Well, talking of being exciting and fulfilling. You couldn't have written a better segue if you tried there, I think, because as you guys might know sitting in this room, but you guys may not know out there listening, is that one of the things that Georgia does for us is she does our weekly quiz. So that comes out every week, every Friday on Smart Property Investment. We push out over our social channels as well. George, have you been doing the quiz for everybody?
I have. I've really enjoyed doing the quizzes.
What's the best quiz that you did, do you think?
Oh, that's a hard one. I really enjoyed doing the celebrity homes. That was an interesting one.
Was that because it broadens people's education about property investment?
Yes.
Or just because you sticky beat celebs' homes?
Bit of both. Does that work?
Yeah, you can get... Well, I mean, you've swerved, but there's nothing wrong with that. What about the worst one?
The worst one?
In terms of scores?
Or do you mean the least good one?
Or the least good one, if you prefer it like that. You're such a pedant. I didn't know this about you. But yeah, or the least good. I mean, because I've seen some of the scores come in, and some of them are shocking. And I've done some of the tests as well, and I know some of them are shocking. So what's the worst one that you've done, do you think, that you thought, because obviously you don't set these things for people to fail and do miserably at it, I hope. But which one did you think people would get better on that just was appalling?
I think maybe the median prices one.
The median prices one.
Yeah, a lot of people found that very difficult.
Okay. And you've prepared a quiz for us today, haven't you?
I have.
And this is to find out how much we actually know and how much we're a bunch of blaggers that get experts in to talk about it. So
can I sit out of this one?
No, you can't. Everybody's in, I'm afraid. So I've kept this secret from everybody. So I've told Georgia that she had to do a quiz. I haven't seen the answers either, which I suspect is going to be pretty apparent from the answers that I give. But Georgia, tell us what the quiz is and tell us how this is going to work. This was such a bad idea. But yeah, go for it.
Okay, so it's the most searched suburbs on our data pages.
Over what period?
Over the year.
Start.
What I need from you is we'll go around and you got to pick a number between 1 and 6.
All right.
And I'll allocate your question to you.
Okay.
What number?
I will say number 3.
Alex.
It's got to be number 6.
Vivian?
Well, Alex just stole my number, so I guess I'll have to go with number 1.
I knew I was right.
All right, we'll go around one more time. I've got 6 questions here. So, Andy, another number?
I'll go with number 2.
5. Which one do you want, Viv?
Well, Alex, you've managed to do it again and take my choice, so I guess I'll have whatever's left.
I'm going to start off with question 1, which is for Vivian. I'm very happy that the first question's for Viv. You got New South Wales, the top 5 most searched suburbs in New South Wales. I'm going to do you a favour and let you know what number 5, 4 and 3 were. So number 5 was Moss Vale. Number 4, Abbotsford. Number 3 was Campbelltown. So I want you to tell me, I'll give them to you, but you have to tell me how they placed out of Austral and Sydney, which was the most searched suburb in New South Wales in 2015.
I'm going to go with Sydney purely on the basis that perhaps people weren't sure exactly what they were searching for and they just typed in Sydney to see what happens.
Well, you were right.
That's such a gimme question as well. Such a gimme question.
That's why you pick number 1, Andy.
Well, yeah, well, with
hang on a second. You said that I took your number. Can we swap that? Or is it too late?
Oh, maybe should I award Alex your point for that
Definitely
one?
not.
Okay.
He took my numbers. I didn't take
All
his.
right.
Okay, so there's, just so we're clear, so everyone's got 2 questions each.
Yeah.
And basically the question is going to be a 50-50.
Yeah.
Okay, so the monkey test is you need to get at least 50%.
Yeah. So, Viv,
Okay.
you're on track.
On track for being a monkey.
I am a winner.
The second question, Andy, this is your one.
Yes.
Victoria.
No. Oh, no.
Number 5 was Chelsea Heights. Number 4 was Bentley.
Yeah.
3, Footscray.
Yeah.
Out of Mount Waverley and Melbourne, what was number 1?
Well,
You're just going to steal my logic.
yeah, pretty much. I'm going to have to say Melbourne, just on the basis of what Viv said.
You are correct.
Yes.
All right, so the pressure's on, Alex.
Bring it on.
All right, so number 5, Springfield. 4, Logan Central. 3, Beenleigh. And then out of Toowoomba and Tennyson Moorooka, what was the most searched suburb in
I'm
Queensland?
going to go for Toowoomba.
That's correct.
Yes, we know stuff.
Impressive team. Very
I
impressive.
know my stuff.
Go on, Kat, let's bring this home. 100%.
All right, Vivian, your turn again. South Australia.
Oh dear.
Feeling confident?
No. I
All
just
right.
hope that the answer's Adelaide.
So the 5th most searched suburb in South Australia was Hawthorn. Then Blythe was number 4. 3 was Oakbank, and out of Highgate and Millang. So Adelaide's not even in there, Viv.
Oh no.
Probably don't choose Adelaide.
I'm going to go with Highgate and say that if it's wrong, I've thrown the competition because my bosses are in the room.
Well, it's your lucky day because you got it right. That's 100% for you, Viv.
Nice.
And 100% for all of us so far.
Technically.
So, Andy, Western Australia.
Your favourite.
Do it.
Number 5, Spearwood. 4, Scarborough. 3, Perth.
Ooh. Damn.
So, out of Forest Field and South Perth, what was the most searched?
South
suburb?
Perth.
Are you sure you didn't look at the answers?
No, but
You
it was the
did-
only one that
you
had
did
Perth in
give
the
me
title,
sheet,
so that's why I picked it.
All right.
Did I get it right?
Yeah, you got it right. Yes. South Perth, number 1. All right.
Pressure is on.
The pressure is on.
So Alex, you get a bit of a different question for this last
Righto.
one. So top states. I'll give you the 5th, 4th, and 3rd top most searched most searched states on our data pages, which were South Australia, number 5, Western Australia at number 4, Queensland at number 3.
Okay.
So out of Victoria and New South Wales, what was the most searched
Over the last
state?
12 months, is this?
Yes,
I'm going to go for New South Wales.
New South Wales. I am very impressed. That is 100%.
Yes.
I
Go
think that's the
team.
highest score on any of my quizzes.
There we go. Perfect.
Certainly for Andy.
Well, yeah, well, that is absolutely. Well, anything over 50% was going to be my new personal best. So I'm pretty impressed with that. I'm impressed that you put the quiz together. I'm more impressed that we managed not to stuff it up publicly. And all this stuff, guys, you're going to be putting this up on, because obviously you're reading the list of the most sort of data searches that we had on the data pages on smartpropertyinvestment.com.au. You guys, it's going to be up on the site as well, so people can actually pour through this in a bit more detail and have a look at the suburbs that we had.
Yeah, definitely. Our data pages continue to get a lot of traffic and people go there to get all the latest information on what's happening in all the suburbs across the country. So it'll be interesting to see what your fellow investors have been looking at throughout the year.
Absolutely. Oh, well, enough of looking back on where we've been. 2016, 'tis nearly upon us. I want to know what sort of predictions that you guys might have, that either about property, about areas, about things that may affect property investment, or just anything in particular. So who wants to kick me off with a prediction?
I'll kick you off, Andy.
Good.
I think that in 2016, it's going to be much the same as 2015. From my perspective, I think everyone's going to keep talking about this property bubble. We're going to continue to speculate whether negative gearing is going to be phased out, and certain people are going to continue to panic that the growth we're having is unsustainable. And at the same time, smart, savvy investors will just continue doing what they're doing, put their heads down, buy, and continue to succeed. I don't think it will be nearly as dramatic as many people would have us believe.
When you say people, you mean the people in the media who write stories around property?
No, I mean the people who send me releases who I then write about.
Oh, okay, gotcha. That makes sense. Alex, what about yourself?
I think you're going to see vacancy rates spiking in certain areas, which means that investors are probably going to have to realign what they think they're going to get in their rentals. But as Vivian said, I mean, I've watched this market now the Australian market as a whole for probably about 20 years. There has always been talk of there being a property bubble, and whereas there have been some corrections in prices over the last sort of 10 years in certain markets, there's never been, sort of the blood in the streets has been predicted. So look, I think, as Viv says, smart investors will continue to buy in areas that are going to deliver long-term results. Look, some people are going to come unstuck because they make bad decisions, like trying to make a quick buck in the mining towns. But yeah, life will carry on.
Georgia, any thoughts?
I think I'm going to throw in a silly prediction here, and that is that people are going to get bored of talking about the property bubble.
That is outrageous.
Never. They love it.
If you'd had said hotspots, then I literally would have walked you out of this room right now. I'll tell you that. But that's okay. No, I don't like the property bubble speculate. I think it's stupid, to be honest. So not that you need to be, people do need to be concerned about, responsibly investing and what they do. And, while speculation with certain the sums of money that's involved in property investment is not something that I'd counsel anyone to do. But yeah, I think there's a lot of.
But let's just get one thing straight on the property bubble. For there to be a bubble, there has to be a vast oversupply in most instances, and supply continues to be tight in most markets, very, very tight in some markets. And I think that the increased migration, which goes on year after year, yes, look, property in Australia is expensive. On an emotional level, it's hard. It's tough to afford. I think younger generation coming through are quite rightly worried about being able to afford to buy property. But the reality is, there has to be an oversupply for there to be a true bubble, and for there to be an eventual crash in prices, and that isn't going to happen.
Cool, good stuff, guys. Well, look, that's about it.
Hang on a second. We need your prediction.
That's very true. I tried to get away with that, didn't I? Did try to get. Well, luckily, I've kept one in my back pocket just for this eventuality. So, it's something that we spoke about a couple of weeks ago on the show, and I think it's inevitable. Look, the banks never miss a trick to be able to scrape more cash out of Australians, the battlers or the rich, and I think that's only going to continue. I think they've pretty much let the cat out the bag about decoupling from the RBA, and I think we are going to see rates go up from banks regardless of what the RBA do, and out of step with the RBA as well. So the reality is, I just think the cost of money for investors is going to get more expensive next year. Pure and simple. So not panic stations, but more expensive. We're at the lowest rates had ever been in this country. So by definition, you've got to expect that to go north at some point. And I think 2016 will be the year it happens.
A cynic might say that the banks will be lending less, and so therefore to get a better return on what they've already lent, if you bump rates up, you're going to get more money coming in through the door. So
yeah, possibly. But banks like to lend money. It's their main breadwinner, isn't it? So but yeah, that's what I think will happen. So I saw you all thinking I didn't have a prediction. Well, I did have a prediction. So there we go. But that pretty much wraps it up for this week, guys. Thanks for coming in and filling me out of a spot because Phil let me down. Cheers, Phil. It just remains for me to say, Alex, thanks for coming on. Wish everyone a Merry Christmas and say goodbye.
Thank you, Andy.
Didn't wish anyone a Merry Christmas. Scrooge, Vivian.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
And
Happy New Year.
Well, and goodbye. Your ability to follow instructions is terrible. Georgia.
Merry Christmas and goodbye, everyone.
You guys want to watch your backs on this one. She's gunning for all your jobs. Just remains for me as well to say, look, thanks for listening to us in 2015. Obviously, 2016, we will be doing more of the same. We'll be putting newsletters out and everything over the Christmas break, so you can continue to check on everything that's important for smart property investors on, the address by now, www.smartpropertyinvestment.com.au. Of course, anything you want to talk to me about property in general or this podcast, just write to me at publisher@smartpropertyinvestment.com.au. Other than that, it just remains for me to say Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and thanks for stopping by. Goodbye, guys.